Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anupama, Professor at Department of Economics, Punjab University, Patiala. I am going to talk about the module Variability of Urban Life and Poverty in Different Geographical Contexts from Population, Urbanization and Poverty. So students, we are going to discuss about the relationship between geographic location and poverty within the urban areas. We will also discuss about certain policy options which may be helpful to pull people out of poverty traps. The main objectives of this module are to understand what is urban poverty, how geography matters in case of urban poverty, what are the spatial poverty traps, what are the causes of spatial poverty traps, how and why poverty prevails within the city, what are the levels and trends in growth of slum population, how we can identify the urban areas which are vulnerable to chronic poverty, what can be the policy options to pull the poor and vulnerable in urban areas out of chronic poverty. New millennium is witnessing a massive change in pattern of urbanization at a global scale, and the world is being rapidly urbanized. Just 600 urban centers now generate roughly 60% of global GDP. The developing countries are witnessing a higher growth of urban population, but hundreds of millions of new urbanites are found to be involved in the peripheral economic activities of personal service, casual labor, street vending, rag picking, begging, and crime, leading to increase in urban poverty and inequality. Thus, urbanization not only brings with it possibilities of improved access to jobs, goods and services, but also gives birth to inequalities, poor quality of life for an increasing number of marginalized people, and so to conflicts and social unrest. Most interesting fact about urban growth today is that it is occurring not in the wealthy settings but in the expanding cities of developing countries. Perhaps most striking is the fact that virtually all population growth in the coming decades will occur in low and middle income settings. Global population growth is overwhelmingly concentrated in marginal urban and surrounding periphery contexts, especially slums. Therefore, urbanization today is also associated with growing urban poverty. In this context, let us first define urban poverty. Poverty in general is defined as a condition of deprivations. These deprivations are generally measured in terms of income or consumption. However, urban poverty is a dynamic condition that extends beyond monetary benchmark under $1 and $2 a day to a wide range of vulnerabilities and risks. Some characteristics of urban poor include lower than expected life expectancy, higher rates of infant mortality, chronic malnutrition, a disproportionate amount of household expenditure devoted to food, low school enrollment rates, high rates of illiteracy, weak access to key services, and poor public infrastructure, high involvement in informal activities, marginal geographic location, limited security of tenure, exposure to organized violence, and many others. Thus, the current definitions of the urban poor try to focus on social indicators related to all these aspects of deprivations. Other definitions tend to use hard and fast economic parameters of income and or consumption. So while there is still some way to go to arrive at a common definition of urban poverty, there is nonetheless consensus that the number of proportion of urban poor is increasing. A growing chorus of analysis claims that the locus of poverty is changing from rural to urban areas. Drawing on income consumption approach, the World Bank estimates that roughly 750 million people living in urban areas fall below poverty line $2 per day and 290 million below $1 a day threshold. As for their distribution, the majority of the urban poor reside not necessarily in the megacities but rather in large and mid-sized cities in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, where the incidence of poverty is also comparatively high. According to the World Bank, Latin America and the Caribbean have the greatest proportion of urban poor relative to total poor, owing in part of higher rate of urbanization. Now the question is whether the geography matters in case of urban poverty. Whereas we believe that today greater number of poor people is urban in character. The question is if this is true for all countries in the world, or if the geography plays an important role in shaping the distribution of world income and economic growth. SATS and many others have established that there is an association between the geography and poverty. According to them, the coastal regions and those near navigable waterways are indeed far richer and more densely settled than interior regions, just as Smith predicted. Moreover, an area's climate can also affect its economic development. Nations in tropical climate zones generally face higher rates of infectious diseases and lower agriculture productivity, especially for staple foods, than to nations in temperate zones. Similar burdens apply to the desert zones. The very poorest regions in the world are those saddled with both handicaps: distance from sea and a tropical or desert ecology. A big majority of the poorest countries lie in the geographical tropics, the area between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. In contrast, most of the richest countries lie in the temperate zones. The importance of access to sea trade is also evident from the geographic spread of poverty. Regions far from the sea, such as the landlocked countries of South America, Africa, and Asia, tend to be considerably poorer than their coastal counterparts. SATS pointed out that moderate advantages or disadvantages in geography can lead to big differences in long-term economic performance. For example, favorable agriculture or health conditions may boost per capita income in temperate zone nations and hence increase the size of economies. This growth encourages inventors in these nations to create products and services to sell into the larger and richer market. The resulting inventions further raise economic output, spurring yet more inventive activity. The moderate geographical advantages is thus amplified through innovation. In contrast, the low food output per farm worker in tropical regions tends to diminish the size of cities, which depend on the agriculture hinterland for their sustenance. With a smaller proportion of the population in urban areas, the rate of technological advance is usually slower. The tropical regions therefore remain more rural than the temperate regions, with most of their economic activity concentrated in low technology agriculture and thus leading to poverty of a majority of its population. Billions of people around the world live in geographic pockets of poverty. This has given birth to the concept of spatial poverty traps, which are found in detached remote areas and also in the burgeoning slums of cities. They are home to large number of people. Around 1.8 billion people live in less favored, low potential areas, and around 1 billion people live in slums in the developing world. Now let us first define what is spatial poverty trap. The spatial poverty traps are where geographic capital, that is the physical, natural, social, political and human capital of an area is low and poverty is high, partly as a result of geographic disadvantage. Spatial poverty traps may be geographically remote, that are far from centers of political and economic activity, low potential or marginal, that is ecologically disadvantaged areas that have low agricultural or natural resources, or less favored, that is politically disadvantaged areas, or weakly integrated areas that are poorly linked with physical and in terms of communications and markets. This shows how the geographic location of a place determines the level of poverty of people living there. Still, the differences are made in first nature and second nature geography of poverty. In the first nature geography, the poverty is related with the topography and the proximity or the remoteness from the coast, while in case of second nature geography, poverty can be associated with unequal geographical distribution of infrastructure facilities, economic activities, and public services. It is thus being felt that poor agroecology, poor infrastructure, weak institutions, and political isolation of remote areas, they reinforce each other, and therefore the incidence of poverty in such areas increases. Due to interaction of these factors, the remotely located areas, that is both rural and urban, they bear the deprivations of physical capital, socio-economic capital, and human capital. So let us discuss about the theoretical framework of variability in urban poverty in different geographical contexts. The theoretical framework of variability in urban poverty for different geographical regions has been given by Chronic Poverty Research Center, which divides the regions in four main categories. Firstly, remote regions and areas. These areas have locational disadvantage as they are geographically isolated, may have high or low population densities. These areas may have geographical obstacles such as slopes, ravines, and marshes that contribute to their isolation. The low connectivity of these areas and the main centers of economic activity lead to high cost of infrastructure, which further results in poor quality or near absence of these provisions. The remoteness of these areas also leads to fewer employment opportunities and opportunities of upward mobility. The markets in such areas are also very weak. Little wage labor is available. Accumulation of capital is also very low due to low demand and high risks for investments. To add to the woes of these areas, the political access representation in mainstream political bodies is also low. As a result, their issues, problems are rarely addressed, and the residents of such areas remain trapped into chronic poverty. The second type of areas are low potential or marginal areas. These areas have the ecological disadvantage. These are the areas where ecology is not favorable for productive activities. The examples of such areas include the areas located on hillside, riverside, or canal side. These areas also have limited possibilities for technical change in natural resource-based production system, as they are vulnerable to natural hazards and displacements. Such areas have unsafe and insecure settlements. Since the productive activities are fewer, internal generation of resources is also very weak. This leads to increasing dependence on remittances and public subsidies. Such areas are also characterized by poor economic and social infrastructure, overpopulation, and low human and financial capital. Though the political disadvantage may not be necessary in these areas, but natural disadvantage always isolate the residents from the benefits of the mainstream economy, leading to discrimination and inequality. The third type of areas are less favored areas. These areas are politically disadvantaged areas with no clear patterns for their ecological characteristics. They can have both high and low potential environments. These areas can be disturbed areas with acting warring groups. Such areas have low level of infrastructure services. Private sector avoids investing in these areas. Political isolation further aggravates the problem as both public and private investment in these areas would be lower. The social protection programs are also weak. Such areas generally witness a huge outflow of productive assets, that of both labor and capital. Only the residual populations are left behind, which include people with low abilities, little capital, old or very young, disabled and sick people. Since there are no safety nets, law and order is poor, people are largely poor in these areas. Fourth type of areas are weakly integrated regions. These regions are poorly linked and economically disadvantaged. These include peri-urban and urban areas which have poor services and connectivity. Ecologically, these areas may have high or low potential, but limited information and poor services never enable them to exploit their own resources or to migrate for better opportunities in other regions. Since they have very low information and poor bargaining strength, they are adversely incorporated into the markets through exploitative and uncompetitive economic relationships. These areas are also politically marginalized or have unstable political environment and poor representation in central bodies. In this framework, we can easily understand the relative prosperity and poverty of certain countries across the globe and certain regions within the same country. A look at the differences in income of top 10 and bottom 10 countries easily depict the importance of first nature and second nature geographical differences. For this, we can see figure 1 and figure 2. We can easily see that the per capita income of the top 10 countries are higher than that of the bottom 10 by the multiple of about 100. If we analyze the internal socio-economic and political conditions of these countries, we can easily find the determinants of such huge gaps that will be discussed as follows. The first determinant of spatial poverty trap is agroecology. An area's agroecology and aggregate social characteristics have been found to have strong influence on the ability of residents to meet their basic needs. Areas with poor agroecology and low aggregate levels of social characteristics are vulnerable to becoming spatial poverty traps. Another important factor is institutional, political, and governance failures. In remote and low potential areas, the weaknesses of institutional and political organizations also lead to low ability of the people to react against the deprivations, and even if they do so, they are met with little success because the resilience to shocks depends on the institutional and political context as well as on having access to the resources and assets needed to devise an effective coping strategy. Since all such factors are inadequate in such areas, poverty persists in these areas. Another determinant is stigma and social exclusion. The mainstream society often looks at people from remote and downtrodden areas with fear, anxiety, and scorn. Stereotypes, labels, and stigma based on race, ethnicity, language, religion, culture, or habits may result in exclusion and discrimination. This may result in discrimination in employment and access to housing, credit, as well as other facilities, even if they try to migrate. They may be blamed for crime and political unrest, and they tend to be poorly connected to political elites and therefore are weakly protected. The fourth determinant of spatial poverty traps is physical location and inadequate infrastructure. Less favored, remote urban areas often have inadequate infrastructure facilities, which have an adverse impact upon returns from labor and investment. Adequacy of infrastructure stimulates a virtuous cycle of agglomeration by attracting new investments, industries, and people, while the absence of it means the vicious cycle of poverty, deprivation, and economic marginalization. Another important determinant of spatial poverty traps is poor education and health facilities. Remote and economically marginal areas have a stronger probability that health services will not only be below national averages but also below other non-remote areas. Kanbur and Venbels found that disparities in school enrollment and neonatal care are a direct result of inequality in the distribution of public schools and public health facilities. In areas with poor physical infrastructure and service provision, preventable deaths become more likely, and ill health and impairment further deplete human capital already low because of poor education and the health impacts of poverty-induced malnutrition. Remoteness itself increases the cost of increasing healthcare and other services, and the poor lose a higher proportion of income making the journey. The relationship between fees paid for services and quality of services, for example, education, is likely to be worse than elsewhere. If resource flows are lower and less reliable, personnel are less attracted to remote areas, and local politicians are less active in attending to their constituents. As a result, the chronic poor are likely to seek out local substitute services, traditional health practitioners, or informal education. Now, taking the case of India, we can easily find this relationship. In one of the studies conducted by Planning Commission, a positive and strong relationship of monthly per capita expenditure was observed with infrastructure index, health, and education. The monthly per capita consumption expenditure is an indicator of standard of living of the masses and is often used as a measure for locating poor. A positive association of monthly per capita consumption expenditure with health index, education index, and infrastructure index shows that poor availability of these services is closely associated with poverty. Further, this relationship can also be observed from Table 1. This study pointed out that the areas with low level of education, health, and infrastructure indexes are also likely to be poor, while on the other hand, a higher index value of these services is associated with higher standard of living. Crime and insecurity are also important determinant of spatial poverty traps. The remote or less favored areas are also likely to be home to criminals, banditry, and terrorist groups. There may be circular causation of these factors with growth. As due to remoteness and lesser attention of the administration, poverty and illiteracy of the residents, such areas are a secure home for such unlawful activities. On the other hand, it is also possible that since these areas are inhabited by the insurgent groups and other criminals, the administration, officials do not dare to enforce the law and order. The implementation of the government programs for the welfare of the masses is usually thwarted by such bodies which generally act as parallel governments in these areas. Whatever may be the reason, the outcome is poverty of the residents. Since in such areas no investor is interested in making investments, there are fewer chances of economic growth of these areas. Thus, we have observed that isolation of certain areas is an important determinant of differences in growth rates and per capita income of the residents. The residents in such regions are badly placed to seize the economic opportunities and enjoy the upward mobility. Their convergence to other relatively prosperous areas is also lower due to market failures. Now let us discuss about poverty in slums, inner city and peri-urban areas. We have seen that prevalence of poverty is associated with remoteness of an area with the mainstream economy, that is due to their first nature geographical locations. But the slums, urban peripheries or peri-urban areas are the areas located even in the core of the city, may also exhibit pockets of poverty even though they are closely linked with mainstream economy of the city. Such areas have their own economic geography which pushes them into poverty traps. Slums are simply defined as heavily populated urban areas characterized by substandard housing and squalor. The inner city areas tend to be characterized by overcrowding and high levels of competition for work. In addition to commodification of land and services, while the urban peripheries or the peri-urban areas lie between rural and urban settlements on the roadside, highways, etc. Although these areas are outcomes of urban expansion, but they are characterized by lack of urban facilities, markets, along with informal and insecure settlements. These areas are also caught in spatial poverty traps. The reasons of these poverty traps in the overlapping categories of slums, inner city areas, and urban peripheries can be discussed in the following discussion. First of all, let us discuss about the poverty in slums. In growing economies, urbanization is the most pervasive phenomena which is bringing both the challenges and opportunities. Cities and towns are centers of agglomeration economies, investments, technologies, innovations, tertiary jobs, and economic growth. They are hopes of millions of migrants from rural areas and other small towns. But as the population in these areas grows beyond a certain limit, the urbanization process can also be associated with growth of slums and squatter settlements. In such settlements, the residents live in inhuman conditions that deny them dignity, shelter, security, and the right to basic civic amenities. Under the current dynamic growth conditions of the developing economies, the world is being urbanized at an unprecedented scale, which has led to growth of slums also. The Global Monitoring Report shows that between 1990 and 2010, Although the proportion of population out of total urban population living in slum areas has declined in all regions of the world, but it is very high in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. This can be observed from figure 3. India is also a part of global trends, where an increasing number of people live in urban areas. The share of urban population to total population in India has grown from 17.3% in 1951 to 31.6% in 2011. The growth of urban population is also associated with increase in number of people living in slums. India's slum population more than doubled from 43 million in 2001 to 93 million in 2011 in 10 years, and it is projected to grow at 5% per year, adding nearly 2 million every year. Figure 4 shows that Mumbai, Hyderabad and Kolkata are home to largest number of people living in slums in 2011. The slum population in Mumbai was equal to the total slum population of Hyderabad and Kolkata taken together. Even in Delhi, Chennai and Thane, the slum population was more than 10 lakhs. The state-wise data in Table 2 shows that the highest number of slum dwellers in India are found in Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh, and all of them are likely to experience an increase in the number of slum dwellers by the year 2017. The maximum increase will be registered by Maharashtra. Within a span of 6 years, these 6 states are likely to increase their slum population by about 58 lakhs. These slum dwellers are officially the illegal dwellers of the city, and so are not reflected in the city maps. They live in areas where waste is not collected, where taxes are not paid, and where the public services are not provided. Officially, they do not exist. They are not able to access most of the formal institutions of society, and lacking a legal address, they are often unable to access social services. However, a working group established by Planning Commission states that the slum and informal settlements are potential and viable entry points for addressing the visible manifestation of poverty in cities and towns. They are identifiable, and although outside of the legal system, have acquired stability and have vast amount of potential currently constrained by distorted and exclusionary policies. Now let us discuss about poverty in inner city areas. These areas are characterized by high density living conditions with high competition for work and resources and considerable commodification of land, infrastructure and basic services. Survival options which may be easily available in other neighborhoods are more constrained and costly in the inner city. Significant health problems are linked to hardships, pollution, and congested, unhealthy living conditions in central areas. These areas may also include slums and other informal settlements. Although the civil amenities in the inner city are assumed to be higher as compared to the peripheries and rural areas, but we should also acknowledge that for most of the citizens, these facilities are often seriously inadequate. Many households have to rely upon public tap. There is open garbage system and sanitation facilities are often poorly maintained, leading to health hazards in these areas of the city. Although the availability of jobs is assumed to be higher in the city, yet the growth of employment opportunities are always lower than that of the growth of population. Therefore, a majority of the workers are employed in low-paid, insecure, and casual jobs with poor working conditions. Since they work for long hours at lower wages, they do not have any other source of living, and any contingencies of life easily push them deeper into the poverty traps. The access to decent employment opportunities is not equal and is highly competitive, in which economically, socially, and politically advantaged class always have a favorable edge. Since the informal economy is unregulated, the work is often below the stipulated limits. The lack of regulation results in vulnerability of the workers to unscrupulous employers and practices, including high rents for trading spaces, that is the corrupt officials. Informal inner city traders live with a constant threat of stock being taken by police and trading being closed down. We can also discuss about poverty in peri-urban areas. Urban population growth and increasing scarcity of land push large and increasing number of people to live and work in high-risk, low-potential or marginal urban environments around the edge of the city. These settlements are informal and unplanned settlements located along road or rail embankments or on outer city rubbish dumps. Since these areas are located on the periphery of the city, where the public transport is not adequately available, the residents find it difficult to secure central urban employment. Lack of affordable transportation can render even relatively short distances costly and impractical if prices are too high relative to the potential income. Just as the inner city and slums, peri-urban areas tend to be characterized by inadequate provision of services. They have fewer or no water and sewerage services. These geographically peripheral areas are also peripheral in relation to social fabric of the city. Such deprivations often land them in precarious positions, particularly when they face health problems. To sum up, it can be stated that the geographic location of an area within the country or the city has a significant impact upon poverty levels. These differences are determined by the interplay of natural, ecological, economic, social, and political factors which work discriminately for different areas. But such inequalities can be both economically and socio-culturally detrimental to the development, particularly if they lead to conflicts and unrest. Therefore, these issues should be timely dealt. This calls for an increased investment in infrastructure and other services for those excluded areas in and around the cities. Such investments also need considerable flexibility and planning in governance. Despite the need for regulation and penalties, urban management has to be driven flexibly to respond positively to the reality of informal settlements. The inclusion of these settlements in the welfare programs should be carefully drafted. If the legal entitlement of the settlements is necessary for implementation of social welfare programs, the process of the same should be adopted accordingly. If the same is not possible or have serious contradictions with national policy goals, the voice of the stakeholders should be adequately weighed and an amicable solution should be found by providing them alternative spaces with better living conditions and better access to urban facilities as well as urban labor market. That's all with today's lecture. I hope you must have enjoyed this lecture. Thank you.